Hello, I'm Denis Greene, founder of the Stewardship System and president of Church Development. In today's training video for your Stewardship Committee, we'll address the importance of involving your volunteers as ministry partners in order to boost your stewardship efforts. With everything we do in the Stewardship System, our desired outcome is to increase generosity. And that includes giving of time and talents as well as treasure. Money is one way of giving. Giving of time and talent is equally as important. The emphasis on stewardship is usually financial. However, we're going to show you compelling evidence for facilitating the giving of time and talent and how it will actually impact giving as well. In 2009, Fidelity Investments conducted a study of volunteers and discovered that the average volunteer gives more than 10 times what a non-volunteer does. An active volunteer, on average, gives $2,500 per year to the charity for which they volunteer. In the non-volunteer study, we discovered that they gave only $230 per year. Citibank had a similar discovery when they researched the giving patterns of high net worth individuals. So for people who make $1 million a year or more, so I'm sure that's most of us here watching today, for those millionaires, they discovered that if they volunteered an hour a week, or 52 hours per year, they tended to give 3 times more than those people who volunteered for an hour or less per week. So these two studies indicate that it's absolutely critical that you facilitate volunteering among your people. It will lead to increased generosity. In fact, it would be worth every penny for you to hire a volunteer coordinator in your church. If you don't have this staff position, you should seriously consider adding it today. There's a phenomenon that's important to understand when you're organizing volunteer activities in your church. It's called episodic volunteering. Imagine that the people in your church are divided into 3 groups, and these 3 groups are represented by 3 concentric rings. The most involved third of your people would be at the core of the circles. The second most involved third would be in the next ring, and your outer ring would be your least involved people. We jokingly call this last group the CEOs. That stands for Christmas and Easter only. Your inner core is obviously highly involved in your church. They are the saints that keep all the programs and ministries at your church running. But to get the other 2 groups more involved, you need to offer episodic volunteer opportunities. These are easy entry, short-term volunteer projects that only last for a time or 2 or a meeting or 2. This will allow the more uninvolved person to step in, have a meaningful volunteer experience that does not involve them committing for a lifetime, and then they can step back out. They'll discover the joys of serving without being locked down for the duration and drawn into the next service opportunity. Let's think realistically about this. If you're a CEO and the pastor asks you to join the finance committee, that person might look at it as if it's a terminal disease. They're thinking, just what I need to be on a committee until I die. But if you give them a great volunteer experience and they serve on a project that's really interesting to them, or they have a gift in, you'll set the table for them to come back for more and more often deeper levels of commitment. Ease them in, and you'll build more committed volunteers. Active volunteers will also lead to a vibrant church. Researcher Tom Rainer used the research methodology from the popular business book Good to Great to identify what makes dynamic churches dynamic. His follow-up book, Simple Church, discovered that vibrant, growing churches have 3 ongoing activities. Number 1, they have a dynamic, attractive worship experience. Number 2, they offer a lot of social opportunities for people to make social connections. And number 3, they have the dynamic expectation that people practice their faith by volunteering. They put their faith in action. Now, there are a couple methods you can employ to make this happen in your church. The one I like the most is to offer regular giftedness classes. You can help every individual in a church discover what special gifts and abilities God has blessed them with by sending them to this class. This will help them ascertain what special ministry gives them joy. They'll be begging you to serve when they know where God has called and gifted them. Then after you offer the giftedness class, you might consider hosting a ministry fair so that all the people who learned about their gifts can then be linked to a ministry in your church where they can begin to serve. This is a very powerful 1-2 punch for engaging your people as ministry partners. Pick a day after church. September, I think, is a good time of the year for this. And have all the ministries of your church set up a table in your fellowship hall promoting the work that they do. Every individual in the church can walk through and see all the good things that your church is doing, and then sign up for an episodic volunteer opportunity. Before the fair, you could even survey your people to find out where their interests lie for service, or to better tailor your ministry booths. The final and most important way to engage people in ministry is to give them the opportunity to make a statement of their intention to volunteer a certain amount of their time. Just like people pledging their financial resources, having them pledge time in service to God is another great way to build their stewardship experience. So when you produce a pledge card for your annual stewardship campaign, my advice is to include a spot on that card where they can pledge their time in addition to their treasure. I'd like to share 2 success stories that really illustrate the impact that volunteering can have on giving. At St. Thomas More Catholic Church, they'd been struggling for many years to start a capital stewardship campaign. It had been a series of starts and stops. This led to a great deal of frustration and anger about the possible church renovation. One method we used to dissolve the frustration was to create a sense of action and involvement. We created a wide range of episodic volunteer projects. One committee had more than 100 volunteers. And the result was that everyone in the church knew someone who was involved as a volunteer on one team or another. As a result, not only did we transcend the history of anger and conflict, but we raised over $3.8 million for the renovation, and the church was unified through service. It's a tremendous success story. At First Presbyterian Church of Kirkwood, they understood the value of volunteering, so they appointed one volunteer to be the facilitator of all the volunteers. This person's sole job was to find places where other people could volunteer. This lay minister did all that we mentioned above to find people opportunities to plug in and make an impact in the church. As a result, their giving has gone up by 7% per year. So as you can see, engaging your people in meaningful ministry role is a crucial step in creating a culture of generosity in a church. I hope you'll be moved to set up a ministry fair and giftedness classes so that your people can begin to make a difference for God's kingdom as they faithfully serve in ministry. Blessings on your ministry and your work at your church.